Hey guys, Mr. Riz here, and we're going to start part one, which is going to introduce us to a new concept in coding called defined functions. So everything that we've done in coding so far has been sequential, meaning we just go through in order, list by list. The next level of coding that's out there is called event or object-oriented coding, where we go through and we're coding based off of events. So we code what to do with the event, and then at the bottom of the code, we just explain what events happen. All right, so let's go through and we'll learn a little bit about program functions and function parameters. So these are pretty good videos here that we will watch and skip through ads because there we go.
Python function. The idea of a function is to assign a set of code and possibly variables known as parameters to a single bit of text. So you can think of it a lot like why you choose to write and save a program rather than writing out the entire program every time you want to execute it, or on a much smaller scale, why we use variables. So to begin a function, you define the function by using the keyword def, short for define. And this notifies Python of the impending function definition. From there, you're going to type out whatever name you want to refer to your function as. Now, you want to be kind of careful in the name of your function, just like you would want to be careful in the name of your variable. You want to choose something unique, and it's not going to conflict with anything else, like time. If you define a function and you call it time, it's going to conflict with the time module should you use it. So you don't want to use time. So for us, we're just going to use example. And after the definition of the function's name, you have the parentheses. And within the parentheses, you have any parameters, if you have any parameters in it. For now, we're just going to leave those empty, but I will show you guys in future videos how to use parameters. After the parentheses, you have a colon, then you hit enter, and basically everything you type under here is going to be the function block. So as you type code and you hit enter, you've got this is all contained in your function. And then finally, when you come over here and start typing more code, that's outside of the function. So this is the function. So that's kind of the idea of Python standards. Whereas other programming languages, generally you're going to have curly braces, and you type within the curly braces and blah, blah, blah. We use indent only. So, for example, we're just going to say print basic function, and then we'll actually call a variable, assign a variable, that's going to be 9, and we'll even print that variable out when we call this function, and that's basically it. Now, if we go to run this program, you'll find that nothing happens. We hit run, and nothing happens. Now, sometimes just like trips people up. And what's happened is we've defined the function, but we've not actually called the function into action. So to do that, you can either type it out, so example, empty parameters, hit enter. Another thing you can do is literally within your script, you can type out example, and when you go to run it, it will just automatically run, so you don't have to actually type it in yourself. Those are the function basics. In the next video, what we're going to be talking about is parameters in the function, because parameters add quite a bit of dynamic variability to your function. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the next video. Stay tuned for that. As always, thanks for watching. Please follow us for the subscriptions. And until next time.
Yeah, we'll watch that video next. No, we gotta skip this ad.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another Python 3 Basics video. In this video, we're going to carry on with functions. In the last video, you were shown just a very basic function, but we didn't use any parameters. In this video, we're actually going to include parameters and give this function more functionality. So let's define a function, and we're just going to call this function simple underscore addition, and we're going to have num1 and num2. And basically, when you write this stuff out, you're just making it up like a variable name. You can pick anything you want, just write it in. It's going to act like a variable within your function. So as usual, colon, enter, and now we will get this function. Now what we want this function to do is just some simple addition for us. So we're going to say answer equals num1 plus num2. So that's going to give us our answer variable. And just for the sake of printing out something else, let's also go ahead and print num1 is, actually, num1 is, and then num1. Now what we want to do is actually print our answer too. So let's go ahead and print the answer. So print answer, and now we'll print out our answer. So num1 is going to be whatever we specify in the num1 parameter, and the answer is going to be whatever num1 plus num2 is. Obviously, if you put letters or string or whatever in here, it's not going to work. So anyway, enter, and we'll run simple underscore addition by 3. So we'll save that, we'll run it, and we get num1 is 5, and then the answer 5 plus 3 equals 8. Cool, easy enough. And there are no limit to the amount of variables that you can have, or the amount of parameters that you can have in your function. The only thing you really want to look out for at this point is the order of the variables as well as the quantity of variables. Now, the order is as follows. So if you really wanted num1 to be 5, but instead you did 3, 5, obviously num1 is going to be 3, not 5. Now, there's a couple of things that you can do here. You can, one, protect yourself somewhat by doing something like this. So you could say num1 equals 5, and then num2 equals 3, like so. And you can hit run that. And it's going to work just like it always has. But you're not going to really see people do this too often. But what you could do is you can say num2, num1. And so even though they're in a different order than we specified that we received them, because we're saying it explicitly here, we're allowed to do that. So num1 is 3, and sure enough, that did work. So that's going to work for us. Now, quantity is also going to be an issue. So let's just revert back to what we were doing before, 3, 5. We run that. That works out for us. But if we have only one variable called, we get an error. Simple addition, missing one required positional argument. By that same token, if we have 3, 5, 3, 4, 4, and we run it, we're going to get another error. It takes 2, but 3 were given. So that's why quantity is a big deal. Now, that's going to be it for this specific video. In the next video, I'm going to be covering.
All right, yeah, we'll stop there. So that guy does a pretty good job of explaining a lot of the Python. And if you ever check any of his videos, he does another good source of other information here. But this is something we are going to introduce in this activity. Something if you want to do in your project at the end of the year, you can. But if you ever take my computer science principles class and get credit for Hawking College, we go through all this and we spend a lot of time on defined functions. So what we're going to do is go through each group of code that is completing the task and create a defined function for it. So we're going to make sure you include the variables used in each parameters for each. So we're going to test out the code segment. Note we'll need to add a print function to the code to test it out, then go back and delete if the function works correctly. Okay, so what we're going to do is take our code and we're going to kind of break down what we do in defined functions. So if you remember when we looked at our code, all right, we set up everything and initialized, and we're not going to change that at all. We're not going to change any initialize anything. We're just going to always leave it like this. But this next part is we like build our guest code, right? And our secret code. So let's call this define build temp guesses, or build temp. And we don't need to take any arguments in here. Okay, so let's see. And let's go through at the end. Actually, yeah. And let's just at the end here say print temp secret code print temp guess code. So all we're going to do now here at the end is just run the function build temp. Is it build underscore build temp? We're going to run it and just see if it builds it. So we get 0, 0 because we haven't gone through any of the code right now, but we did get it to run and we can see the temporary guess codes. So that works. I'm going to get rid of that print statement, and I know the build temp works out perfectly. Okay, next, this function here, if we remember, checks to see for the correct spots, right? So let's call this function define check correct spots. All right, and all we need to do here is go ahead and run this, and we'll just do a print here. We'll do a couple prints. So print temp guess code, actually temp, yeah, temp secret code. Spell right, secret code. We'll print the temporary guess code, and then we will also print, let's do, well, yeah, let's print the correct spot. So we're basically checking to see if all of our variables that we're using get worded out. So you know what, I'm going to get rid of this print at the bottom here. So after we build our temporary guess code, we will do check correct spots. Invalid syntax. Did I spell it wrong? Check correct spots. Oh, forgot the colon at the end. Okay, so we do get an error here. We have a local variable called correct spots that we need to use. All right, so correct spots goes in here, and then we need to return it. So what we got to do is realize that this is the variable that's going to get returned over and over again. So what we need to do is to globalize this. We need to do global correct spots. So what that means is we're going to take whatever their correct spots is here and globalize it. All right, so we run it again, and now we get our temporary guess code is x, 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 you know, b, y, 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 w, and we have 3 correct spots. Good. Okay. Next, all that works, so we can get rid of these print statements. We don't need to see that again. Next, this code here checks for the correct number of colors, right? So let's define this. So define check correct colors. All right, so we're going to take all this code that's here, and let's tab it in. And then to make sure that it's working right, let's add a couple print statements. Now we already see an error here because our correct colors is being used. So we'll have a global correct colors. Okay, so let's print off. After all this gets done here, we'll put it at the end. Print temporary guess code, temporary secret code. Wish it would on that. Print temporary guess code. Print. We want correct colors. Correct colors. Yeah, there we go. All right, and we need to call that. So if we think about here, down what we're doing here is just building our code. So in our game, it's just now going to be running in as 3 lines of code. We build our temporary code, we check correct colors, and we check correct spots. Or not correct colors. All right, so we get X, X, Y, Y, B, W, and there are 0. So let's just double check this. Let's change this to make sure that this works out. Actually, we want to do one more code, and I realized we deleted it, but normally we won't have that print off like that. what we also want to do is have another function called like print score, and where we get our global correct colors and our global correct spots. Now, the one thing that he talked about in parameters, when we use a global, it's like we use a parameter, but it's not built in locally. So that's getting a little bit more complicated than we need to worry about, but this would be a nice, easy way. So what we're going to do is then just print correct spots. And then we'll also print correct colors. All right, so our code here, if we look, is broken down. We initialize everything at the beginning. We have a define function for to build the temporary. We have a define function for to check the number of spots. We have a define function to see if the colors are correct. And then a define function to print the score. So if we think about our game, just operates this way. We build the temporary score, we check for colors, or we check for spots, we check for colors, and then we print the score. So we get 3-0. So now this function runs the exact same way that it did before, but now we have functions. So when we start making or changing our code, we're not going to have to copy and paste all these different things over and over again and have a big, long, super long line of code. Now we can leave all this stuff above here alone and just start working at our game with this. So we made our own like print module. We made our own defined functions. And let's just make sure it works. So I'm going to change our guest code. Let's do red, red. Let's do blue, capital B. Let's change this to yellow. So if we look, we should have one of them that's in the right spot and two of the right colors. 1, 2. Okay, so just double check this as well. What if I did? Let's mix it all. Let's see, we get a 0, 4. I don't think we can go. I guess blue, W, red, red gets us to have. I think I've kind of broke this. Stop. Run this. Oh, let me reload the page. I think I clicked play too many times too quickly. Did it save? Okay, it did. We'll run this. 0, 4. Because none of them are in the right spot, but all of them are the right color. And double check red, red, white, blue, 4, 0. Okay. So everything works out good. Now we have our code set up like this. All right, guys, have some fun with this. This is kind of exciting. We're getting to a higher level of abstraction, a higher level of learning. It should be a good time. All right, guys, have a great day. I'll see you next.